What's a popular belief in UX that you think is completely wrong?
That's a good one. Popular belief in UX. I don't know if it's a belief, but I get frustrated when I hear, especially on the design side of the fence, of designers who kind of want to be left alone to do their craft and deliver their solution and be respected for their skill set and don't want to spend the time with the users or treat that as a burden. And then in the same breath, complain that they don't feel respected and have a seat at the table. We might be driving something on wheels for the next couple of years, but as long as we know where we're going, we can start to introduce new technologies that bring our users along for the ride so that when we get to a place where that car is now flying, we haven't abandoned our users, made them to feel less than intelligent, or isolated them where they have to go find a different product they're comfortable with.
There's two kind of product leaders. One is like this visionary product leader who think user feedback is noise. Like
Right.
if I ask what users want, they want a faster horse, right?
Right.
Then the other product leader is like, oh, we gotta grow with the users. We learn along the way. We test the prototype. We get this, and then we test ongoing. Normally, you know, we have time to debate on this, but in today's world, there's not much time, speed. Welcome to UX Stories. I'm your host, Li-Hong Hicken. I've spent my career obsessed with how we understand what users actually think. When Chris and I helped scale usertesting.com from zero to IPO, we thought we had it figured out. AI has changed again. The speed of building is now 10 times faster than speed of listening. So Chris and I built They we want to use vibe testing to match the speed of vibe coding. I'm here to talk to builders who want to ship products their users love. Today, I'm joined by Jason Moore, Head of User Experience at Planful. Jason, beside the impressive titles, I want to know deep down, who are you as a product builder? So looking back at your last year, who are you as your product builder, and what's the hardest thing you feel like you had to unlearn because you feel like the job description is changing every single week?
Yeah, great question. And I think that's one that I think most of us might start our day with each and every morning. What are we going to be today? I think most recently I would really kind of brand myself as an organizational designer. Being in kind of the enterprise B2B space, I find myself getting an opportunity to lead teams of designers and researchers and content professionals. And so I really start every day by really asking the question of how can I help my team be more successful in what they're doing? How can I provide them more air cover at the C-suite to not only be recognized for the great work that they're doing and the hours where they deliver things that look like it could have been done in just a couple minutes, and really helping to support. And I think as a leader, I really always start with the why. And early in my career as an IC, I often struggled with, why am I building this thing or this experience or solving this particular problem? And so I think if you were to ask a core philosophy of mine, it really stems from the fact of, I need everyone on the team to understand why we're moving in a particular direction, especially when there's disagreement, because obviously everyone has an opinion. But when you work with larger companies and larger teams, the more that you can help people understand the why, the greater opportunity you give them to really own that area of responsibility. And the more that they feel that ownership, you tend to get better results.
That's very thoughtful. So you basically help your team find the purpose and meaning of their work. That's actually really great. It must feel so great, feel like their work has some meaning. They design things that users love. Why are we doing this?
That's right.
That's really awesome. I guess things are changing so much.
Mhm.
There's a vibe design. There's a concept of
Right.
vibe. Now you can, you don't have to be a designer. Like before, I was like worship design. They can build things. Now I can use this AI tool to talk a
Mhm.
few words, and then things changing. Did you feel like this kind of a crazy speed is making you free to innovate?
Mhm.
Or do you feel like this kind of speed making you feel like this treadmill is just faster and is going nowhere? I mean,
Yeah. Well, I guess a couple comments I would have there. I mean, the speed of the industry is actually why I love being in design. I made a very intentional decision to skip college and to get into the workforce right away and really get my hands dirty. And I don't want to date myself too much, so we won't mention any years, but Many years ago, I made that decision, and it was because of the speed. And that's why I find it kind of humorous now with a lot of earlier career designers. They spend so much of their time, being the best at Figma or being the best at any kind of a Claude like framework where they can experiment very quickly. And I always warn people, don't get too hung up on the tactical tooling of what it is that you're leveraging to get your job done. You should be focused on the building of relationships, your integrity as a designer in the industry, and the ethics that come along with it. And really, focusing on being a great team member. And I know for me, I often joke with my team of different, I've had teams of 3 and I've had teams of 35. I always, say my number one job as a leader in the UX team is number one, to make other leaders. So going back to Liz Wiseman's book, Multipliers, that had a huge impact on how I established myself as a UX leader, because it was very difficult early on to go from, hey, here's what I made. I could show it to you at the end of the day. I could put it in your hand. You could try it out. And it was something tangible. And then you move into the people space, the organizational design space. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what did I do today? And it took a while for me to kind of untangle that in my own mind. But I now joke with the team, my number one job responsibility is to put the people in the right place to be the most successful they can be, and then to get out of their way. And so when it comes to something like I love it. I encourage it. I actually, one of the first questions I will ask a designer or a researcher is have you ran this against your favorite AI tool to get some feedback before you're showing it to me? Because what AI has allowed us is, it's not that it's replaced us, but it's given us, you used the word freedom earlier, and I want to double down on that. AI is giving us the freedom to fail faster with
Mm-hmm.
less risk. And so
Right.
from that standpoint, I don't have a lot of the concerns of, the sky is falling and our jobs are going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
AI has really just unlocked the potential for us to get to that last moment of human decision to be the most successful that we can be. And whether that's research or design and rapid prototyping, it's incredible to see what we're able to do in 2026.
Yeah, totally. I like that your ideas like, well, okay, AI let us fail faster. And,
Right.
you said, you know, get it out quickly to get some human feedback. But I've
Mhm.
seen a very interesting phenomenon. I'm a little bit critical about this. I think a lot
Mhm.
of this AI hype is creating a lot of a shitty product in the market. I don't know. I want to
Sure.
hear your unfiltered feedback on this. Like, because of all these AI, vibe coding and then
Mhm.
vibe, design, you can crank up a product in, let's say,
Sure.
half a day, right? But
Mhm.
then the traditional way of getting feedback is not easy, right? I mean, I know when 13 years ago, when we created usertesting.com, if you have a hunch, you have an idea, you can order a test for $19.99 and you can
Mhm.
test your concept in an hour or two, and then you come around and test another concept and you improve on. You can do 2 or 3 rounds a day and quickly do it. But today, you can't do it. I call it the cost of curiosity is so unaffordable because private
Mhm.
equity team has bought usertesting.com, UserZone, what users do into the interview. They bought all the private equity firms. Now, if you are entrepreneur, you had to sign up for a 30K contract to test your curiosity, and it's so early. You go get the AI tester, which are not real human being, and
Right.
so I'm a designer. I'm like, screw it. I'm going to build it and rip it apart if I guess it wrong. So I'm going
Right.
to build it and fail fast. And it's just like you said, like sometimes I feel like, am I building the right thing? The purpose is not there. Like, who am I building it for? I want to build it for humans solving the right
Right.
problem. Like, you show up in the day, like, who is the person I'm building for? Because I can't test it with the people. So,
Yeah.
like, what is the temptation here? Do you, like, as a leader, it's like, we just fail fast and build it, guess it, fail fast?
Right.
Or like,
Right.
what do you have a third option now? Like, sorry, I throw this hard question in front of your face.
No, no. These are good. These are good. I mean, these are real problems. And look, I think everyone needs to stay grounded in the fact that if you've been in technology long enough, AI, at really at its simplest definition is another new pattern that's emerged, right? We're no longer printing software and burning CD-ROMs. We're no longer shipping every 24 months. In some cases, I've worked for companies that are shipping into production 2 to 3 times a week, which is very aggressive and also very rewarding because you can fail really quickly. And I think there's a danger in to make AI into being something bigger than it actually is for two reasons. Number one, it's just another technology trend at its core base. And number two, I don't think I'm not going to sit here and pretend to tell you that I've got the AI thing figured out. And if anyone does, they're crazy and they should be retired at this point because I don't think anyone's got it fully figured out. We just haven't figured out up until the point of us recording this podcast and how we're using it. And the reason I say that is, yeah, in the B2B space with Planful, they're in financial planning and analysis. And so you're dealing with very strict deadlines, very strict calendars that people need to make very important financial decisions on. And one of the ways that we've been able to leverage AI in a very positive manner, and you may not like this given your affiliation with user testing, is we've been toying around with this idea of synthetic users, and I won't take credit for that. I
Yeah.
was paired with a very talented researcher named Christina Medeiros, and she really educated me on this. And we started building these recipes out for all the different personas. So if you're in an organization with a large design team and you don't have a canon or a Bible of personas and jobs to be done that you live and die by, you should stop listening to this and go get those done right away. But we were able to take all those different personas. In this case, we had about 5 core personas, and we built recipes using OpenAI's tool. And we
Hmm.
uploaded our entire help center worth of content.
Yeah.
And then we were able to actually feed it these Figma files. And did we go to production based on what we learned? No. And I think that's the biggest pushback on synthetic users. They're not there to go to production with. I'm not going to bet the company on what a GPT is going to tell me about, what it thinks about my Figma files. But I'll tell you what it did do is it did find the immediate obvious blind spots we were missing in solving customer pain points, so that when I did get that important human on the phone for a customer call, I wasn't wasting their time with button placement or basic linear interaction patterns that we already had answers to because we had already given it like a once over, so that we were able to maximize the time with the user and really dive deep on the core problems and the core workflows that actually help them automate and get their job done a lot faster. So again, for me, it was not a replacement. It was not a this or that. It was a this
And
and that.
and
That's
I
right.
love it. We are also building synthetic panels. Like this, it's like a synthetic panel is for solving quick problems. The key is how do you train the synthetic panel to get into the certain percentage of accuracy? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I would say if you have enough real human data to continuously nurture and keep the synthetic panel up to date, I would actually like
Mhm.
just like it. I feel like the panel is like the flower or your pots, the
Yeah.
plants in your house. It's not like you train the synthetic panel, you're like, okay, you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
It's like it's alive, but you had to continue keep up to date. like
Right.
like if you continue to use your real, because your real user evolve over time, it's not like a dead pool of
Right.
users. They grow, they learn, they grew with you. So should be your synthetic panels, right? So like
Absolutely.
synthetic persona. So as long as you don't treat your synthetic user as like a something you invented once and you like leave them, and that will be dangerous, right? So
Very dangerous.
as long as you have the real user, and then you keep feeding the real user study and keep
Mhm.
syncing up your synthetic panel for emergency use cases, I think is a very smart way
Yeah.
to do it for the right project.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the ways that we've begun to address that, and again, I would say we're in like the first or second generation of leveraging these personas is once, and I don't know, again, I don't want to talk down to anybody, but I learned very quickly that I could go and test a user persona, get some, then go talk to the real human who is that persona doing that job.
Uh-huh.
And then based on what I learned, there's two truths that I need to keep in mind here. Number one, the synthetic user has bias, right?
Uh-huh.
We call those hallucinations at times. a human has bias. So if I have someone who's been in the market or in the space for 20 years, their apprehension to leveraging anything AI is off the charts. They don't want to
Right.
touch it. Whereas someone earlier in their career in the FP&A maybe doesn't have the wisdom to do that and maybe is much more quick to adopt early technology. That bias exists whether I'm talking to a computer or whether I'm talking to a human. The difference here is that what I'll come out of the user calls with a particular persona, I will take all those notes down, whether it was generated off the Zoom or whatever I recorded, and then I'll actually feed that back into the persona itself and say, hey, here's some new things that I need you to keep in mind for the next go around. And so that's a very easy and manageable way to keep your synthetic personas evolving is just go tell it what the real human said. Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, the AI is not making up anything on its own. It's
Yeah.
just a giant
Totally.
encyclopedia of information. And it goes to a particular, book, quote unquote, on the shelf, pulls the book down, gives you an answer. So just keep feeding it more and more volumes of knowledge and you will bring the persona along for the ride and it will start to change its tone and learn how to work with you in a
How to,
more
yeah,
efficient way.
exactly. And you were
Yep.
talking about a manual way to keep your persona up to date. Like imagine, like we, as they said, we do AI surveys, interview, user tests. So
Mhm.
imagine we pull data from your users' reviews, your survey response, interview responses, your usability
Mhm.
testing recordings, and automatically feed that over time. And
That's
that
right.
is hundreds of thousands of things, not like your limited human responses. That's powerful, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. I wanted to get your unfiltered questions about the Henry Ford paradox, right?
Mhm.
So there's two kind of product leaders. One is like this visionary product leader who think user feedback is noise. Like
Right.
if I ask what users want, they want a faster horse, right?
Right. Right.
Then the other product leader is like, oh, we gotta grow with the users. We learn along the way. We test the prototype. We get this,
Mhm.
and then we test ongoing. Normally, we have time to debate on this, but in today's world, there's not much
Right.
time, speed, or maybe you over time you have a third option. Which kind are you, Jason?
Yeah, so I think there's a real danger, especially, being relatively new at this last team that I've been a part of. There is a danger to coming in and just because you are the one with the newest opinion in the room to kind of table flip all the work that has been done previously. I mean, internet technology, in most cases, especially in the B2B space, we're dealing with products that have been around not 5 years, but more like 10, 15, 20 years. These are teams that I've been a part of running, and you have a lot of muscle memory and a lot of technical feasibility constraints to work with. So, what I like to do, and maybe I'm dodging your question, so keep me honest, is I think it's very important to always be working on vision types. You should always be working on quote unquote concept cars and the art of the possible, and always asking yourself, if we were to start this company over again today, would we build what we have right now? And yeah, the answer is probably no, but it also doesn't mean that you're going to burn the whole thing down and rebuild. And so it's really important to for designers to really have a seat at the table with the executives. You have to understand why you're doing what you're doing to drive the business value, whether you're privately held, PE backed, or publicly traded. And you have to have a plan. And this is just product discovery 101. You got to have a plan on how to break it down to the minimum viable product.
Uh-huh.
Again, we don't talk about minimum sellable product. It's the viable that I think is really key here. And having a plan to say, hey, if we know we want to get to a flying car eventually, we might be driving something on wheels for the next couple years. But as long as we know where we're going, we can start to introduce new technologies that bring our users along for the ride so that when we get to a place where that car is now flying, we haven't abandoned our users, made them to feel less than intelligent, or isolated them where they have to go find a different product they're comfortable with. And so I think aggressive, constrained growth over time is the best way to get the user to adopt it. Because again, in the B2B space, it's not like our users have a choice in using the product. They have to use these products to get their job done. And I think as a design professional, no matter your discipline, you have to be willing and able to bring them along at the same time. And by doing that, Whereas, so AI, whether it's agentic or analysis based tooling, scares a lot of people. But if you start very, very small with low risk items, you will get them to a place where they're going to feel very comfortable putting in large, sensitive amounts of financial data and leveraging these products in a much more prudent way to get their job done than you would by just throwing it on them on day one and saying, you need to adapt to this or move on. Because I think as designers, a bias that we have, if you're like me, you're a day one adopter. I'm always ready to try something brand new. But most of the time, my job doesn't depend on it. And when you get into things like regulatory reporting or providing financial data in the public space, I mean, we're talking about the difference of whether or not someone goes to jail or not. The risk is very, very high. It's not, I'm going to try the new iPhone on day one. And so
Right.
I think you just always have to stay grounded in who you're providing your knowledge to and the solutions you're doing. They're not going to be so forgiving if you put them into a difficult spot even once. And once, especially in the FP&A or any of the financial spaces, anything that you do where you create data mistrust, it's game over. I mean, good
Hmm.
luck ever earning that back. And I think it's so important that a designer stay grounded and recognizing that. That doesn't mean you don't shoot for the stars, but you don't always get there in the first jump. And so having a plan of how to break that down into pieces that your users can digest is ultimately how I found to be the most successful.
That's very insightful. What's a popular belief in UX that you think is completely wrong?
That's a good one. Popular belief in UX. I don't know if it's a belief, but I get frustrated when I hear, especially on the design side of the fence, of designers who kind of want to be left alone to do their craft and deliver their solution and be respected for their skill set and don't want to spend the time with the users or treat that as a burden. And then in the same breath, complain that they don't feel respected and have a seat at the table. And my advice to any UX professional is if you want a seat at the table, you only have so many hours in the day. You got to get out from behind the keyboard, especially in this remote world that we're living in. I live in the state of Montana. There's only 1 million people in the entire state. If I spend all my time sitting behind my monitor and not talking with users and spending the FaceTime with them, I'm going to lose. And so you have to be very, very intentional. That doesn't mean that you can't be that designer sitting behind the screen. You just have to understand that you're creating a place in the world that's going to limit opportunities in the long run. And so, I think you just have to be really honest and take an assessment of where you want to go in your career. And if you're someone that wants to have that opinion and to have those conversations, then you got to figure a way to automate yourself away from Figma and spending more time with the human interaction.
Totally right. When you are describing that, I immediately have images of that designer in my head.
Of course. I think we all do. I think we all do. We could do crazy eights and sketch all those out. And I bet ours would look very similar.
Sometimes those designers are the ones that we really respect and very genius ones, right?
Right.
Yeah, cool, cool. All right, let's go through some rapid fire questions and
Okay.
then go from there. So, what's your usability testing stack look like right now?
Oh, usability stack. I've used a lot. I mean, usertesting.com is one, Dovetail. I would say probably one of my weaknesses when I think about my UX tool belt is actually usability testing.
Okay.
When I get asked that question, I say, well, one thing I'd like to get better at is the usability testing. I'm much more comfortable in the quantitative space. So I would say my stack is really finding the most talented researchers that I can, learning from them, and then making sure I'm providing them cover.
Okay, so how big is your research team now? Like, okay, I heard a lot of people say they're cutting the research team, is
Yeah.
your team's getting cut or more now?
I would say right now at Planful, it's the smallest team, and I don't want to go into specific numbers, but it is definitely the smallest team that I've overseen in the last 12 years. That isn't has nothing to do with AI or the synthetic users. That really just has to do with helping them kind of have the aha moment on why research is so important. So when I think about the life cycle of design, in the beginning, people didn't really understand why we needed designers, and then that kind of proved itself out. And then research was kind of the next box we uncovered. Why do I need research? Oh, well, here's why. That's why you need really strong leadership to help the executives see it. And then I actually see more and more companies diving into content design, which is a huge discipline to the benefit of the users. And when I see a really great content designer, and especially when they get frustrated, why don't they have more resources? It's like, look, you're where research was maybe 5 years ago, but it really is on the design leader to prove to the organization the value that they're delivering. And so having someone strong in that leadership role that can sing those praises, I think is huge. But yeah, I would say we have a very, very minimal research team right now, probably half as big as it should be.
I heard that from every design research
Yeah.
leader. Like they said, they are the smallest one. I don't know what's going on. Is it because AI make them more efficient, or it just people can't prove the ROI of usability testing programs?
I
Which
think
one do
we're
you
all
think?
chasing. Yeah, no, I think we're all chasing that. What are the metrics? I mean, I was just asked in the previous organization before this one, what are the OKRs for the design org and how do we measure the value of what they're providing? And it can't just be number of Jira tickets delivered, right? That's an output, that's not an outcome. And so, again, you have to really come to it from this is the design problem. As a leader, you have to come to the table with here's how we're solving problems and the value we're driving back to the organization itself. And if you can tell that story, then you will get unlocked, I guess, capital to invest in those particular areas.
It's funny. We are actually hosting a webinar with founder of usertesting.com.
Okay.
The title is called "The Lies We Tell Ourselves."
Do
I'll
more
send
with
you.
less.
Yeah, I'll send you where it is. I'm actually looking forward to it. He's a legend. He actually created that. But last question I want to ask you is, if you have a
Yes.
magical wand, what is one thing that will make gathering user feedback dramatically easy for you? Sure, you said you want a researcher, but it's hard to
Yeah.
get.
If I had a magic wand, it would be the ability I really liked, and again, I'm not sponsored by anyone. I really liked when we were leveraging full story at Demand Base and the ability to record and scrub the PII of user sessions and understand the rage clicks and the screen monitoring. I wish there was a way without having a user have any knowledge of how to use Figma or anything else like that I could get feedback asynchronously, that I could put something out there, somewhat guided, somewhat freeform, because again, you don't want to lead the user. This is why they don't let me do the testing. And I could get better insights without having to wait. Because right now, the biggest challenge we face is just the seasonality of when these financial programs need to go live or get retooled, et cetera. And it doesn't always match up to when we want to release product. So that's probably the biggest thing I would wave my wand at is how do I get myself outside the scope of time to get feedback in a more expedient manner.
You're really a quant person. Actually,
Yeah.
cool. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right. Thank you for your time.